Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican, running for your Commander-in-Chief of Abbotsford. And the first thing we're going to do for our great city of Abbotsford, BC, is remove the Abbotsford APD, the men and women that worked there, that had an obligation to the law, that covered up organized crime, attacked my community, threatened residents, and above all, the vicious act on myself. Abbotsford residents owe the mission of men in the RCMP a tremendous thanks for their knowledge, their wisdom, and their insight to what was taking place with Henry Braun, his son, council, and the Abbotsford Police. We owe that thanks, and every day I do a podcast, I thank them men for the discrimination act that took place on Councillor Mogill with the task force so Henry could block him to win. The attack and calling my neighbor a dumb brown Hindu cow, and me and Henry should work together. The RCMP knew that was about money. Just the vicious things in Abbotsford. That is a clear sight of a great police force, an incompetent police force, and a police force that was being run by the upper establishment. They distanced themselves from Henry Braun, Ed Fast, you could see it, no four leaders taking a picture. And the investigators and Chief Watts figures that this is the way we solve that. No, you don't solve this like this. You have to be gone. We Abbotsford residents and politicians know that you're going to use the Abbotsford Police HR department to work with other police to try to clean yourself. We got so much in common. We're working on organized crime. It leaves too much of a gap of what took place here in Abbotsford, especially on the wrong fronts. Sage's property, changing the zoning, the block of the election, the Abbotsford task force in their undercover cars, we got to get rid of them. The stealing of the gas, the picking up the prostitute, the racing of our Dodge Chargers, jumping on our community vehicles, 6 or 7 of them ganged up to punch somebody, throwing the little girls off the trampoline, looking away from Mike de Jong's illegal party. I believe to Abbotsford residents and to other law enforcement and municipality that one officer jacked the other officer. You tell on me, I'll tell you stole the gas. You tell on me, I'll tell you. So they were pulling favors. You tell I helped Olenoff, probably did the same when he said drop the lawsuit and video for Henry, or I will personally bury you. You and Olenoff probably jacked the police department to Mike Sear. You tell on me and I'll tell what you're doing for Henry. This is how it happens. When you have this much out on social media and this whack, that big company should defend itself. It's on its heels, running around, and you can see the younger guys in the bottom. So I want to make a statement today as a resident and your Commander-in-Chief of Abbotsford here. You could see when the corruption's in the top, it's hard to get rid of it. When it's in the bottom, it's easy. You can see the young officers running around Abbotsford with their head hanging down, their tail between their legs, they got nowhere to go. The bulletproof vest, the shield, the company's name, and the gun doesn't save you no more. It's over, and it has to be over, and we need the best, the RCMP. Today, I want to bring you a different podcast. The attack on Councillor Mogill so Henry could win, using Mike Sear and the task force down at the homeless when Mo was going to bus him. Mo made a statement, where there was smoke, there was fire. After we reached out to Mo of what Darren Braun said, Henry's son, the economic development officer, the attack on our homes and the threats on our lives. Not letting Mo know that we went to the former Premier, Bill Vander Zalm, people that worked with Bill and the Mission RCMP. That was on the shush. Abbotsford Police believed that they were the ones in charge and they could cover it. The men have to be gone. Make no sympathy or pity that the task force is here. We don't know what they've been doing. The organized crime ring in Abbotsford, when you're gone this far, you're going into the crime and the drugs and favoritism, and that needs to be stopped. It's clear that the RCMP or Mission gave them a chance when we went in front of them to do their diligence, investigate their officers, and they didn't. They figured that big name would protect us, these filthy men in there. The leniency, how we can use Vicky Hopes, and Henry was well tied to politicians. I want to make it clear, ladies and gentlemen, this wasn't an RCMP investigation. It wasn't the Abbotsford community. It wasn't a fight between political parties taking one and out. It wasn't residents. It was Henry's own son that pulled his dad down and opened the doors. The economic development officer doing his dad's work, Ron Funk's work, rushing jobs, connected all the dots. Ed, Mike, everybody, Abbotsford Police, connected them all. Vicky Hopes, Dave Sadu. The attack on Councillor Mogel would split the South Asians that Dave Sadu would have called it out. He didn't, because he was already under Henry's thumb. The attack on my neighbor, calling her a dumb brown Hindu cow and not letting her go before the city auditorium. Dave Sadu and Kelly Shahal could have called that out. And you could see that. The block in the election was to hold me down so Ross Siemens could win. This was an asleep team, blackjacking each other. What are I doing here today by the Cape Restaurant? I want you to look across. There's Tim Hortons. I'm not far from where they siphoned the gas, right there to the right of me. I want to make this clear to you that at that Tim Hortons, Abbotsford Police are allowed to drive through and get courtesy drinks. The South Asians saw what took place. They saw what took place on my life. They saw what took place with the Abbotsford Police threatening me. They saw the task force, I made it clear, ringing me. They saw the attack that I stand up and defend Mogill, an attack on my neighbor for Henry to get them grants from BC Housing. And they saw Ron Funk, a diverse. They saw the white-collar crime, you might say. I'm animate about helping my South Asians. There are workers, there are doctors, they're tremendous human beings, and they're our neighbors. Without their help, it was a mission RCMP that stood up when Henry Brown was doing this and called this out and said, you can't let this go. Even over the George Floyd thing, we can't let this go. And we need to call it out. The Abbotsford Police are down on their hands, they're weak. Trying to show ads through social media and their HR department. We're working with the RCMP, we got drinking drivers. We got a big investigation going, so that means you can't let me go. That's kind of like me saying, well, you can't arrest me right now, or the gang guy saying, you can't arrest me right now. Well, I'm eating ice cream. I'm eating ice cream, so you can't arrest me. They're gonna throw themselves in position to say, no, you can't come in and swipe us out. You can see that. This is over the top. This is an elite ring in job lifts, worse than fentanyl, and threatening residents. And you could see the Sage property as I ran them excavators. You could see the block, and I made it clear when Darren Brown showed me. All them leaders went behind Mike DeYoung to get him in, and they believed if Mike got that MP position, we'll clean the Abbotsford Police, we'll halt all the investigations, we'll clean up Ed's son-in-law on Pacific Peak Homes, Devon Roy, that Ed owns a responsibility in there to call this out. The diverse, will clean it all up. It was an upper establishment. This is the stand that the Abbotsford police officer threw and smashed my camera when I was doing a podcast across the top of his car in the sidewalk. This is the phone that he smashed. My son brought me for Father's Day, and my camera, and made accusations. What failed at the Abbotsford Police was the Staff Sergeant to tell the Safety Standards Act that covers and cleans and licks buttholes all day to come out and replace my phone, replace my camera, making a public apology, remove the officer and investigate him, but to go to White Rock and make sure that I was in White Rock, and the entrapment and the lies by Abbotsford Police are over the top. We cannot have this garbage of this uniform and this police. This is a new ring of organized crime. It's a new wave of organized crime. When I'm in office, I'm untouchable. I can do anything I want, and that was what? Transforming private police from the RCMP to private police is a clear example what Henry Brown did to own them. I believe the officers Bob Rich fired out of here, they were probably honest and clean, and Henry couldn't get him under his thumb, so he told Bob to get him out of here. This calls for all residents across this great country of Canada we live, all law enforcement and politicians to come together and help Abbotsford on this organized elite ring. But it also calls for the dismantle of Abbotsford Police. Why? Why are I so adamant? The RCMP mission made sure that we gave the Abbotsford Police a chance to make sure they could investigate, talk to witnesses, do criminal reports, and arrest. They didn't. Mike Sir was told by Henry Brown, the police chief, I need you to cover it, Mike. I need you to cover my attempted murder and everything while I finish my term to load Ross Siemens. And you could see, thanks to the RCMP, you could see the RCMP's knowledge and wisdom, making me run in the election to prove that Greg Toes was bribing and paying to load Ross Siemens, inducting him into the chamber way in advance, controlling over the Abbotsford voters. You could see that. You could see, thanks to the RCMP, Henry's hit and run, Darren Braun and his son in front of him. You could see the task force in front of me. You could see clearly Vicky Hopes was paid to deflect from the law with her Abbotsford newspaper with Ken and hold me out of the election. And that means, like the RCMP said, she had to be getting money. You could see when the RCMP made it go to Ed to do it. The RCMP knew that this day was coming. That is why they wanted to put a stop to it right away, and I'll see what the Abbotsford men and women were going to do. Why? Why did they want to put it? The Abbotsford police are not going to be welcome to drive through and get drinks, and you can see it. You can see usually here in the daytime 9 or 10 cops pulled through here for courtesy drinks. These are South Asians that work here, younger South Asians. Saw that I stood up for my South Asians, my community, the attack on a humbled individual, Councillor Mogel, and the white-collar crime within the Abbotsford Police. They are community people that live here, and they've been attacked and been pushed down, they've been blocked, so Henry could have that. You saw what Henry did to Manji Soe. He wouldn't let me on the stage through Greg Toes so Ross could win. You saw this all. You saw it, and I made that possible thanks to the RCMP. The Abbotsford men and women that run around here, the young guys, the liaison officers, I feel very sorry for them. They're hiding behind their steering wheel. They believe the company name can pull you up. That's kind of like my dad will get me out of trouble when I break the law. Oh, you know what? I'm not too worried. When you jail me, my dad's a judge, so he'll get it off of me. You can't have this sympathy no more. This company's got to be closed down. And they got to be let go. Well, I don't need to hear the investigations. I'm quite adamant about bringing the best in because they can do a better job than these. This manipulation move of investigators, ask them. You can ask them, cold blunt, why didn't you go investigate? Why didn't you go see Mr. Pelican? Why didn't you see all this? Because we were doing damage control for Henry Brown, Ed Fast, and Mike DeYoung, and Ron Funka Diverse. Because if this thing gets out of control and we would have went down and did an investigation, we would have had to force the charge and the RCMP would have came in and all the big guys in the back would have been caught. And we couldn't have that because they're running us and they own us, so we had to do favors. So we beat the community up, we ransacked the community, and we didn't know nothing about law. And now I'm begging to hold on to my job. Colin Watts here. We got to make sure Mike Sir comes back and faces charges for what he covered up. We got to make sure that Gertie Purdy faces charges for what he covered up. We got to make sure who was responsible blocking the 911 call and not investigating. We got to make sure who was responsible not coming out to interview the neighbors that saw the task force threatening me around my house. You can't have these people out there. You can't. You can't. To put a shield on and say we're police, we're above the gangs, you're worse. It kind of gives Abbotsford as a politician, I got to say there's fair justice system because the gangs know the police are bad and framing them, so they're probably taking the law in their own hand to balance the equal position of justice. And that's what Abbotsford has to look at, and we got to make sure we stop that. We owe the RCMP mission a great thanks. Now, Abbotsford Police cannot go into the South Asians' place as this gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And this, they have to pack their own lunches. They're not going to be respected in this town, and they shouldn't be respected in this town. I'm asking Abbotsford residents, the South Asians, and everybody to make their lives hard. Make them really hard. Don't abuse, don't threaten them, but make sure that they're not welcome for the attack on Councillor Mogel, the attack on my neighbor, and the attack through our elections, or the democracy in this great country that everybody fights for our rights for our voice, and our rights for the law. and make sure that they're not welcome in this town to do anything, and they're crying through the back doors that you're aware of it. And we want the best, and we're going to get the best for them land deals. And we're going to go through that city that was manipulating and blocking this and cornering the market with Henry Brown on the multi-billionaire. Darren Brown showed me the attack on the Mackenzie Bog. All them South Asians got deadly sick, but because they were brown, City Magna and Ross Siemens and all these people who should have stopped the cease and desist order didn't care about these people. We can't have that, and I won't have that. It sickens me into my stomach. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you this before I end the podcast. We owe the mission men that work in the RCMP a tremendous thanks. Colin Watts is a failure and a complete manipulator, and he's got to go. It's obvious. You saw Vicky Hopes. You saw last night Suk Mangel's opening, the attack by Vicky Hopes, and last night Andrew Scheer there, Bruce Bamman there, an old probation officer, court person, Kelly Shaw shows up, and she's going to try to show grace against Suk Mangel, that she would not help her, allowed the attack on her, and allowed the attack as a city councillor on the homeless, allowed Archway to do what Archway Community Services is doing, and allowed Vicky Hopes to cover this and help them cover this up, but allowed Nicole Reed of Community Futures to come in Abbotsford, sit on the economic advisories boards, and steal everything to Chilliwack, and pay $100,000 from Community Futures to her, made bad investments and everything. I'm going to show you more. I'm going to show you the tourism board pretty quick here, what took place under Ross Siemens. Ladies and gentlemen, this didn't take a ring of team. This didn't take the top of the RCMP and CSIS and the leading investigators. It took the man that was being used to set it all up, run all the scams and everything, Henry Brown's own son, Darren Brown. And when he said them things, I took it to the best, knowing that he was Henry's son, and he opened the door to help Abbotsford. We got to go after Ron Funk, but the first thing we got to do is close down the Abbotsford Police. And we got to run them out of town, because these were threats on residents. Henry's attempted murder was to mangle me and leave me for dead. Mike Sears' payoff was to cover it. Olenoff's threat from Henry's house, there was break-ins, dropped the video and lawsuits. The Abbotsford Police pulling me over, making accusations all day, trying to frame me. They were trying to save the company. And they went on stage talking about gangs. They went on stage. The RCMP told me way back when we used to bag on them, the mission man, said this day will come. And I never believed it. Today I owe them men a thanks, so does Abbotsford. This day is coming. Shield won't help you. Saying you're a police officer and an investigation ain't going to help you, because that's a manipulation. You had a chance to bring the Police Complaints Commission from Victoria. Results now, and they got to be swift, they got to be clean. We got to toss the Abbotsford's upper investigators' houses. We got to go through their financials and their phones. Henry was the engine, the sole engine. That's why these attacks never happened under Bruce Bamman when he was mayor, George Perry or none. Henry was the manipulator, the financial agent that could pull everybody in that owed him. Henry Brown has to face the courts, along with Mike Sir, Ed Fast. And the Abbotsford Police can never be trusted in this town, and that is clear. Today, the South Asians said, Mr. Pelican, for your great leadership and what you say on social media, we are making it hard for the white-collar crime in the Abbotsford Police to show their faces. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of this moment, because this is how we're going to get results and take the Abbotsford Police out of here and bring the best man that write reports and put it before our courts, so our judges and juries and social media and newspapers can help their community and not cover up the abuse and attack. I'm live, Abbotsford, British Columbia.